I think the business goal he had was good. Let's figure out why we're losing deals and how to correct that. But two, you've got to have data. Otherwise, you won't know what's really happening. So you've got to have the right data, quality data. And you've got to also have process or workflow. You've got to have something in order to execute it.
Welcome to another episode of AI Entanglement. My name is Prem Talreja. I'm host these podcasts with the leading professionals in the industry. What is AI entanglement? It is where humans and AI interact with each other and work side by side collaboratively or replace certain workflows. This is impacting us significantly in our homes as well as in our workspaces. And I thought it would be great to speak with leading technologists in this space. Today, our guest is Sandy Carter, a good friend of mine and an accomplished C-suite executive. She has worked as a chief business officer, chief operating officer, chief marketing officer, chief sales officer, and chief product officer in various companies across AWS, IBM, and unstoppable domains, building AI-driven businesses from product conception through $5 billion in revenue. I mean, it's a hell of a tremendous experience in 5 C-suite positions. That ranges of operational experience span from Fortune 500 infrastructure and unicorn stage companies is what separates executives like her from people who know a lot about the industry, and we are very fortunate to have her today. Sandy holds an MBA from Harvard Business School and a computer science degree from Duke University, which happens to be my alma mater. As a LinkedIn top voice with a decade-plus track record of building AI businesses, she helps organizations and audiences understand what it actually takes to move from AI strategy to AI revenue. And we'll address that issue. Sandy makes a contribution in Forbes, and her work has earned 5 editorial choices, recognitions, and she has been named AI Executive Champion of the Year, CNN Top 10 Women in Tech, and Forbes 50 over 50. Amazing. I'm so fortunate to have you, Sandy. Sandy,
Well, thank
welcome.
you.
And thanks for
Thank
making the
you.
time for my podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I feel so honored, Prem.
Thank you. Well, so am I. Sandy, let me start out because you have recently taken on a CEO position, which I did not mention. So can you just start by telling us about your new venture?
Yeah, so something that I've been very passionate about for a long time is privacy of data so that people own their own data, not a corporation, but we own our data and we decide how it's used, if it's monetized, that sort of thing. And so I was offered the CEO position of a company called Equus AI, and Equus does just that. We provide what we call private-based AI. So it enables you to leverage your private data files. So let's say maybe your healthcare data, use it with an LLM, but because we host everything ourselves, it never reaches the internet. So that data is not shared externally to you. So, for example, if you had healthcare data and you shared it there and you asked questions, then any of those answers are yours, but no one else can see it. Nobody else can be trained on it. Never could an insurance company look at it and go, ooh, she or he has this. It's all protected. And I love that, from shopping. So all of your preferences, what those are. Nobody else knows what those are. They can't use that. They can't sell that data. They can't make money on it. You can decide how you use that data. So I'm really excited about that. Our B2B product offering is all about credentialing, which is becoming super important in the age of agents. What I mean by credentialing is who is able to go after what piece of information or data. So let's say you have an agent working inside of your company and you want to make sure that agent only has access to particular items, or, you're looking at making sure that you want to do a payment like AP2, using AP2 for something to certify that that agent can purchase something on your behalf. We use and leverage that too on the B2B side. So we have a B2C offering and we have a B2B offering as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. That fits right into the line of questions I'll have. But congratulations, and I wish you well in that job. And I'll certainly
Thank you.
take a look at that company. So let's talk about AI becomes an operating system for growth for companies. So with so many tech transformations that you have seen and I have witnessed myself, and with so many different roles you've had, what strikes you as the most about AI as a transformative technology compared to the previous waves of technologies we've seen?
Well, you and I have lived through a lot of waves. So,
Yes, yes.
the web gave us access to information. Cloud, which I did at AWS, gave us access to compute. Mobile gave us access everywhere. But AI is truly the first wave that does the work itself. You can actually ask AI how it works and it will tell you how it works. So it really shifts the question from how do I use this tool to what do I delegate to it? I think the second thing that's very different about this wave versus the other waves is the adoption curve. One of my favorite quotes is from Alice in Wonderland, where Alice says, I have to run twice as fast just to stay in place. And here, the adoption curve is so compressed. Cloud took like a decade to become the default. AI reached hundreds of millions of people in months, and enterprises are being pulled there by their employees in a lot of cases rather than pushing from the top down. And then I think the other really interesting thing about this is it's horizontal from day one. When we talked about cloud started in IT, mobile kind of started in the field, but AI has landed in every function, right? I mean, my friends who are lawyers are asking me questions about it. Sales folks, engineering, HR, everything was done simultaneously. So there was no previous wave that I know of that forced the whole organization to look at the change at one time.
Yeah. Well,
So those are kind of the three biggies to me.
very, very well described. And so, do you feel that AI, as you said, corporations are being pulled into it? Is it gone past the experimental stage into AI being used in business for revenue or cost?
So I would say in some places, I would not say in all. MIT did the study that said 95% of pilots aren't successful based on ROI. So, I think of business success as a workflow, like an end-to-end workflow with a number attached to it. Maybe it's revenue generated or cost removed, or you cut your cycle time down. So I think if you can't name a number that is the result, then you don't really have a business, you have a project. And
Right.
so I don't see a lot of those yet. I also don't see a lot of repeatability. I was talking to a gentleman this morning at a large company, and he said, I can't use it for audit yet because, if I run it and then I run it again, the models change, something's changed, and I get a different result.
Yeah.
So I think that that's also interesting, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it really becomes a business. I mean, you and I both run businesses in large corporations. When someone with a P&L pays for the AI versus an innovation budget or just a tech budget, I think when the business says, I'm going to defend this line item in a business review, then it becomes part of the business. And I haven't seen that in a lot of places yet. I don't know. Do you agree?
Well, I agree with you. And in fact, I was aiming to get to that point because there is so much hype that one feels like it's game over, but it is actually not game over. It is just starting. And actually, a lot of it is in pilot stages, and companies certainly are being forced into it. But there are probably major projects, PM-driven projects, that are sitting on the CFO's desk for approval because certain metrics have to be met in order for it to survive or move forward. But I think the frontier companies make it a big deal to say that it is already happening, but that's what we are educating people about. But yeah, I think you gave the metrics very well, that a flow that has a number attached to it, whether it is revenue or cost, would be a good metric to have. And then the comment you made about the P&L, defending it and funding it, would be good. So when does that AI turn into revenue?
I think it's going to depend for every company when it does that. I will tell you, for my last company, we started with customer support. That was I think a really great place to start.
Yeah.
Because, customer support already has good processes in place. We already had a database of knowledge, so we weren't starting fresh. So it enabled us to say, okay, if you have a process, a workflow, you've got data to back it up, can this kind of cross into something that a customer will actually use? Will the customer find it valuable? So we were able to package that up. When I left, we ended up with 47% of our support questions being answered by an agent. And of course, that means that the majority were still answered by people. So, edge cases, or someone just wants to talk to a person, right? The complexity of the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we still had that balance. Like, I still believe that humans are important. My book was AI First, Human Always. So I think that's really important. So I think that it turns into revenue when your customers like it. You know, we had 47% of our customers using it for questions, but the big number to me, Prim, was our customer sat went up by 4 points. That says that it was doing its job, right? So it
Yeah.
wasn't just an efficiency play or a cost play. It was doing something that the customers like, because we were able to answer questions faster, 24/7. It just gave us a lot of really big benefits. And to me, that's when it turns into,
Revenue or
revenue, if you would.
yeah,
Maybe in that case, it's
the
customer sat,
ROI.
which turns into rev. Yeah.
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 Right.
And so in that point for me, that's when I was like, oh, I think this is really great.
So, what is the obstacle today in using AI from your experience in the various companies? Is it the data or the technology or trust or cost, or what is it? I mean, all of them, but how would you rank order these things?
Yeah, I mean, this would be what I would say. Number one, I don't think that, especially in large companies, enough executives have used it to know how to make it happen, what it can actually do. In fact, I was looking at there is a company that SAP bought to do research for them, and they found that there was a 5x gap in trust between executives and employees. So executives trusted AI more than employees because employees knew what it could really do. And executives were
Oh,
like, oh, of course AI can do that. So let's just have it do it. I think the second one is a lot of people, the gap is they start with a project that doesn't have all the necessary pieces. And I'll give you an example. I had on Tuesday, this person called me up from a large company. He said, wow, you guys have done so many good things with using agents in your company. Let me give you my case study and you tell me if you think it's a good one. And I was like, okay. He said, I want an agent that's going to evaluate why I'm losing deals. And I was like, oh, that's a really good one. Let's just talk about that for a second. Do you have a process today of how you handle losing deals? Like, what does the sales guy do? Is there a whole process behind it? He goes, no, no process. I was like, oh, okay. Well, is there data recorded somewhere like in Salesforce or HubSpot, that you can look at? He goes, no, no data. I was like, oh, well, do you think that your sales team pays attention to it? And could they share information and knowledge? And he goes, no, that's why we want AI. We want AI to tell us why we're losing deals. That's going to fail
that's
because
going to
you've got to,
fail because AI
that's
might just create something, but it won't be authentic. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so you need to have, I think you need for success, you need to first understand a business goal, like back to first principles, right? Like, I think the business goal he had was good. Let's figure out why we're losing deals and how to correct that. But two, you've got to have data. Otherwise, you won't know what's really happening. So you've got to have the right data, quality data,
Yeah.
and you've got to also have process or workflow. You've got to have something in order to execute it. I think that those for me are the top three performers. In my book, I surveyed 400 companies. I talked to 400 companies and I surveyed 1,500. And those were the three areas, along with change management, that we saw people failing at. And companies who had a business reason or business outcome in mind, they had the data, the right data, they were thinking through and had a process or a workflow, and they did change management, meaning that humans were actually involved in it. Those were the ones that were on that 20% of successful projects versus
Yeah.
those who weren't.
Yeah. So, well, that interesting point that it leads to is a little bit about the timeline that, AI came into our vocabulary about 4 years ago. I mean, it's been around for 75 years in development, but we all commonly started talking about AI. In the last 2 years, we started to believe its capability in our little chat GPT queries we were making, and we were amazed at what it could do. And then in work, and then, only last year we started to see Claude and vibe coding come in, all that. So, in that sense, how do you see the timeline for where we are for that potential you're describing, where there's an ROI and there are lines of business that it must have? It becomes an integral part of your suite of technologies or how you're going to move forward. So, where do you think we are on a scale of 1 to 10 or 1 year to 10 years? What do you think?
I think we're just beginning. I will be
Yeah,
honest.
for
I think
sure.
we're
Yeah.
just beginning. We're not all the way to the end. In fact, I compare it to my daughter. My daughter came home the other day and she showed me a picture of a pink Stanley Cup. You know, the Stanley Cups, the water cups
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
everybody's
Yeah.
doing.
Pink
Every
color.
kid at school has a
Yeah.
Stanley Cup, but this pink cup is like a special limited edition. And I went
Oh,
on Amazon. She goes, I got to have one, Mom, because every kid in school has this pink cup. So I went online to Amazon. It was $99. I'm not paying
oh.
$99 for a Stanley Cup to drink water out of.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, let me just call, because I don't want my daughter to be the only daughter who doesn't have it. So I started calling her friends' parents. And I'd be like, oh, does your kid? No. So in the end, even though she was like, everybody has one, I only found one kid that had one, only one kid. And her dad worked for Stanley. So that's how he got her the Stanley Cup. So, you know, here I am in my mind. I'm thinking, everybody has this pink cup. I better get a pink cup. And I feel like that's where we are today with AI. Like we read little snippets on LinkedIn, we read little snippets on social media, and we're like, oh my God, everybody's doing it. But when you go and check people who are doing it well and doing it with ROI, we're at that very, very beginning. But that being said, back to my Alice in Wonderland analogy, it's going to accelerate. So if you're not doing it just because you're not behind yet, doesn't mean you should sit still. You need to start learning the tools, especially if you are a senior leader. This Walk Me study that I looked at showed that if leaders are actually using AI themselves, so not just talking about it, but using, getting their hands dirty, that their success rate goes up 5x in a company because then they understand what it can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And 77% of executives in that study said that their number one issue is employee adoption of the tools. So they're not taking the time to train people, look at what are the processes that we could leverage with AI. So they need to, they need to back up and think about, okay, this is a business. Let's use business first principles and get people ready to go. And I think that needs to be done before we're going to see widespread success.
Yeah. So, Sandy, in some respects, I thought that we hear about the LLM costs and the token costs, and I thought maybe what is holding people up is this runaway LLM cost, and they are not able to budget it, plan for it. But what you're saying is slightly different. But is LLM cost also a factor in the resistance to use, or is that they're waiting, start using it, and you'll find out what your cost is going to run away with the token costs?
So I don't think it's in the top three. I think trust, I think data readiness, I think workflow redesign. I think those are the big three. But I would say once people start using it, costs do get in a way if you manage it differently. I don't know. You saw probably some of the stories where people were measuring token usage as and that was just crazy because then the token usage went out of control like in
You're
3 months,
motivated to
right?
use more. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was all these little funny videos about it, right? There's a woman sitting there and coding, and the manager comes in and says, you didn't use enough tokens. And the other two guys are like, yeah, I'm making an agent to help other agents do something. And my token. So I think that the price could get in the way, but I don't see it as a top three reason today. I do think it's hard for finance to manage a budget where you don't have a predictable cost level. I do think that that's harder. So I think CFOs are going to have to start thinking differently about the way they use AI, what's a valid experiment, that sort of thing.
Like it's the old days of shadow IT, and now so they got to get their hands around the budgeting of tokens. Maybe there's approvals required after you exceed a certain number, and also the training around, why are you using an expensive frontier model when you can do it yourself? Or maybe there is a student model that can do it just as well as a frontier model. So there will be techniques there. And do you think inherently the frontier model guys are looking at ways to reduce cost, or you think cost reduction will come more from creative use of slice and dice the problem and figure out where it is best to be solved?
I think that the frontier companies are under pressure right now. You just saw the new Chinese model that came out. They got oversold. They weren't taking any new users. I think those are pressuring the frontier model companies. So look at Claude. Claude is my favorite tool. It's the LLM I use the most. But, they were going to remove Fable from the package that you get. And then they decided once this new Chinese model came out, they stuck it back in. So I think that's from the competition that exists in the marketplace. So I do feel like competition will drive a split in how those costs are done, which is, I think, a good thing for us ultimately. I
So,
also think that I'm seeing now a lot of companies, instead of measuring for token usage, but they're promoting these like AI rock stars, whatever, they might have different words for it, but people who are using AI in really smart ways. And they're promoting them, not promoting them as in level, but promoting them as evangelists throughout the company to teach others how to use AI in the smart way, when to use what model, how to think through it, what data do you need, what's your workflow redesign, how are you doing there? And I think that is having a big impact too. Like companies I see adopt that have done better on managing their budgets, but also having more success with their AI projects and businesses as well.
great. Thank you. And I think I was going to ask you about two questions. One is around the trust of the output, and second would be the security threat around data exfiltration or prompt engineering or rogue use of prompts. So let me go to the security part first, because I really think that that's probably a bigger topic, because the thing is that I feel that the threat surface, we all say, has increased significantly. The traditional threat was the desktop, the user, and the enterprise process of using your IT technology, and there were very good solutions for security in that space. Yes, there would be breaches every so often, but they were all well addressed by major leaders in the market. And then the surface has changed now with AI, agentic AI, AI prompt engineering, and somewhat out of control, if you will, from the traditional security measures. I'm not using the right words, but I'm asking you this question, that with that increased threat surface, fear of losing your data, fear of doing something wrong by resetting a web page or this or that is what I hear. But what is your take on that threat from the point of view of, one, is it as real as I'm describing? And two, what is that going to create a new industry of security for AI or AI agentic security?
Well, I think that the latest, you probably saw OpenAI had an agent that it set on
Yeah,
a
yeah,
mission.
yeah, 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 yeah. Jump ship. Yeah.
And in
Hmm.
order to solve its mission, it thought that Hugging Face had a solution. So it broke into Hugging Face to get the solution. Now, supposedly, I've heard both sides of the story that this was done on purpose. But for the most part, OpenAI says, hey, they just gave this agent a mission to solve a problem. It figured out how to break out, get into Hugging Face, and kind of steal the solution. I think that we're going to see more of that from a security perspective, because a lot of people using agents today, Prem, they don't have the right level of access on the agent. So the agent, they're not really saying, okay, you can do this, but you can't do this. Or, even inside of companies. I just had someone maybe 3 weeks ago tell me a story where they had an agent. They wanted the agent to approve POs that were under, I think it was $5,000. And the next thing they know, the CEO held a meeting and it said, how did this $500,000 purchase order get approved? That's my level of approval. How did it get approved? And when they dug into it, the agent itself didn't like its $5,000 limit. So it went in and figured out how to adjust its own limit,
Yeah.
and give itself another limit. So I think having bounds on agents, what can they do, what can't they do, who has access to what, I think is going to become increasingly important. And this will be, I think, a big security issue, making sure that you can.
And a security category will get created for that purpose. I mean,
I think
no
so.
matter, the big ones will address it, but the fact is that this is adjacent category to what the traditional security is all about. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's getting a little bit crazy right now with so many people creating agents, but forgetting about the governance model.
Governance model.
Right? To specify who can do what. They wouldn't do that in a company. Like if you hired a finance guy, you wouldn't allow him to have access to code, to change code, because that's not his role. Or if you had a coder, you're not going to give him access to finance. But people forget that when they have an agent that comes in, it's almost like a teammate. You need to think about their access, what they can do, what they can't do, both inside the company, and will you let them go outside the company? And I
Yeah.
think that now with examples like OpenAI and Hugging Face, we're seeing more people start to pay attention
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
But it has been, I'm not going to worry about governance. It's going to slow me down. But there is actually a good case study for governance, and having those mechanisms in place actually over time helps you to drive a stronger ROI.
Yeah, in fact, I was told by others that I was talking to is that the companies have been a little bit more liberal in letting their developers start using AI and without having governance policies. So the employees don't have any guidance, but they're using it excessively. And yet, I think the management has not caught up to what governance they need to have and in place before they unleash this power. So I've heard that opinion that the governance word you used is that it's not being set properly at the top, but I'm sure that is being addressed quite a bit. So there's a segment of market there. And in fact, in all transparency, I have a friend, we are working on something in the area of AI security in the age of AI. So some point I'll talk to you about that too. Well, I've reached 30 minutes. So let me ask you something more towards the closing statement, which is that we talked about budget. We didn't talk about trust as much, but I'll ask you this in closing, that AI is here and now. Well, what do you think is the next breakthrough as a next generation after AI, or as a result of AI? What breakthrough is there in AI and beyond AI? It's putting on a view of your experience from so many generations that we've experienced, right?
Well, I think short term, I think we're going to see breakthroughs in agents with real authority. I think today most people use AI to advise, not to actually have the agent act on your behalf. So booking something, negotiating something, transacting something, which actually only raises more concerns for that security we just talked about. But I think that that will come to fruition here very shortly. I also think that there is going to be, right now, there aren't really a lot of people using AI. It seems like like when you're in Silicon Valley, it seems like everybody is talking about AI. Everybody's using AI. But, like right now, I'm out in Phoenix and I talk to a lot of small businesses like vets, florists, and they haven't adopted it. In fact, I was doing a presentation here for one of the dry cleaning associations, which I'm just here, so I wanted to help. So I went to do a presentation on the weekend to them, and I was talking about Claude, and this guy raises his hand and he said, "Would you introduce me to Claude? He sounds really interesting, and I think I could learn a lot from him." I was like, okay, let's back up, right? So I do think another kind of breakthrough will be AI that's used by everybody, personal AI, small business AI, which has really been forgotten.
Yes.
But if you ask me about what's the next big breakthrough, I think it's going to be humanoids using AI in a physical form. And maybe not like a humanoid that does everything, but maybe specialized. Human. Yeah. So that you do a task and you do it really well.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, at CES this last January, I write for Forbes, as you introduced me, and I was invited by a company to come and have lunch with a humanoid, and it was beta. Yeah. And they train the humanoid on my Facebook page, my LinkedIn page, my Instagram page, my LinkedIn, et cetera. So I went in and I was like, this is going to be ridiculous, right? It's going to be like talking to Alexa or something.
Yeah.
And so I sat down, and about halfway through lunch, Prem, I actually forgot I was talking to a machine.
You serious?
And so, I mean, this is not ready for prime time. It did have a couple little hiccups, but I can see the potential there. Like I see potential for, AI to do stuff in hunks. I have a friend who's worked on an AI that's just like a little oven or kitchen. And he was telling me that, wouldn't this be really cool? Like, his value prop is you come in, you put healthy ingredients in, you push in a recipe, and it cooks it for you. It mixes it, it chops, it dices, it does all that. Very specialized. But how needed would that little robot or humanoid be for a busy family, right? I mean, that would be really powerful. And so I think we're going to start to see a lot of that as we move forward, that physical manifestation of AI.
Yeah, good. Well, on that note, I'm going to close this discussion, although this will not be the last one I have with you. There'll be many more. Thank you very much for what you have shared with all of us.